But what you're dealing with usually is a hoof that is not healthy. It is underdeveloped, right?
Underdeveloped.
And
not
so,
enough blood running through.
Right. The tissues are deteriorated. And so what you want to do is you want to stimulate those tissues in a way that's going to develop them and make them get bigger and stronger. And so now their need while they're recovering is even greater.
Right.
It's kind of like if you're in intensive care and you're healing from something, your caloric need may go up over when you're just normal, right? Because your body is working really hard
to heal itself.
And so the foot's the same way. Now you add into that an inadequate diet, inflammatory feeds, inflammatory grass, whatever that's then caused further restriction. You trim that foot to stimulate it. Now those tissues are like pumped up to 12 saying we need fuel, and the body says I can't do it. You're listening to the Primarily Hooves Podcast, where we make learning accessible from the ground up. Hello, everybody. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Lauren.
And we are Primarily Hooves, and this is the Primarily Hooves Podcast. We are so glad you guys are here to join us today.
In this podcast, we're going to be talking about the origins of why we've named our business Primarily Hooves.
It might be more complicated than you think, though it is just a cute name. I mean, come on.
It is a cute name.
As a reminder, the podcast is new, and so this is the first 5 episodes are going to be our introduction into who we are, right? So as we start diving into topics and interviews and stuff, you know who these two crazy ladies are. You have our background. You get to know us. I think that's very important to build a relationship with you guys. And you can see what our history is that has led us to believe what we believe and do what we do and seek out the people we've sought out, all that kind of stuff. You know, your past experiences turn you into who you are today. And so I think that's very important, especially for those of you coming to learn something, is to kind of know how we got to who we are today. And so that's what these first 5 episodes are going to be.
Absolutely.
And so if you haven't looked at the original 4 episodes, or if you haven't listened to it on your favorite podcast app, because we're on all the favorite podcast apps, and if we're not on one, let us know, and I'll try to get us on that. But if you haven't checked out those early episodes, go check out those because they're all building on each other to finally get to where we are now, episode 5, which is kind of the culmination of all of it.
Yes.
To then let us branch out into topics and interviews and that kind of fun stuff. But first, we want to just take a moment and thank you guys for being here. I want to remind you that we're very active on Facebook, and so please go check out our Facebook page. But we really want to give a big shout out to all of our members on Patreon who make all of this possible. We really appreciate your support. We've gotten several new members over the last 2 weeks.
Yes, so welcome.
Yes, welcome. We're so glad you're here. We are right in the middle currently on Patreon and social media of a 7-day deep dive into why some horses can do worse after you pull the shoes, or what we'll say is when you remove peripheral loading from the equation and you load them on the full bottom of their foot, like Dr. Bowker recommends. Sometimes that can kind of make you feel like things are going worse before better, and a lot of people kind of get stuck in that phase because the horse is footy on rocks, whatever, and a lot of people end up giving up on barefoot because of it. So we are going through the top 5. I think I said 7 earlier, whoops. But the top 5 most common reasons that happens after you load the bottom of the foot. And on day 7, because it's a 7-day series, on day 7, I'm going to go through the 5 most common solutions to those 5 reasons. And so people have really been enjoying that so far. On Facebook, we're doing a mini dive, so you're getting like the light version. And I should say on all of our social media. We have Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. They get the light version, but then our paid Patreon members are getting the real deep dive. And that's not even all of it. I need to do another deep dive because we're not even really getting into nutrition and environment and those kind of things. We're just doing the 5 most common reasons. If I tried to do it all, I mean, this would be a year-long deep dive, and I just wasn't ready for that yet.
Not yet.
We'll get to go back and do it again. But yeah, I'm thinking I want to do these deep dives like quarterly because people are really enjoying it, and we'll see. Maybe they'll end up more frequent because if you've been following us the past couple months, you'll know that this stuff is kind of taken off really quickly, and we're trying to hit the groove. and figure out exactly what we're doing and how we're doing it. And so there's a lot of flux and change going on as we evolve into what you guys want and need from us. So that's been a lot of fun. Thank you, Patreon members, so much. If you're interested in joining the Patreon and you're watching the YouTube video, there'll be a link somewhere or in the bio. I'm going to do something. And if you're just listening in the podcast, in the description on Spotify, there should be a link that will take you to all of our links, or go find us on Facebook. It's at Primarily Hooves. And then in that bio, there's definitely a link that'll take you to all of our stuff. And I always link to the Patreon and to the podcast in the comments of all of our videos here recently, as I become better and better at managing the social media stuff. The last note on that, just as far as business housekeeping, is that because we are getting so many comments and messages through our social media, in the beginning, we tried really, really hard to keep up with all of it the best that we could, because everybody's looking for help. Everybody has something to say. And so we tried to get back to everybody, and we really enjoyed it. But it started consuming like all of the time. And we got other stuff going on.
We got a lot of other stuff going on.
Both personal stuff, but then also stuff for you guys, right? We're working on the course. I'm releasing a How to Take Good Hoof Photos mini course to prepare for the bigger course. I mean, there's a lot going on, these deep dives. And so I can't spend all of my time before bed, on the toilet, all of my time replying to comments. And I hate it. But what we've decided to do is we'll try to get back to the comments, especially on Facebook, as we can. But Patreon, I'm staying glued to those comments. And so our paid members, we appreciate you guys so much. And we will be always getting back to your comments, at least within a day. So if you have questions or you want your voice heard, please go over there and we will make it a priority to get back to those comments. Right now, I'm monitoring them, but if it really picks up, then you can come in and monitor too. And so we want to make sure you guys have a place where you can access
taken care of.
And you're taken care of, right? Especially as this has gotten big quite fast. Which is exciting. If anybody's eyes are looking a little puffy or looking a little off, we did have some, I guess, sad news. It is sad. It's not sad for her, but it's sad for us. News this week. If you've been following us since before we were very active on social media, you'll know I've made some posts about Eva. She was a Black Arabian mare, and she was very special because she had her left knee. She had an injury at some point in her life, and it was very wacky. It was very bowed and very deformed. And so Eva had come to us, I'd have to look specifically, but I believe it was December of 2020. For rehab, she had foundered in both feet, but more so in that compensatory left foot, and she also had Cushing's. And her owner was really struggling. She had come to us for retirement rehab. The idea was that if we get her going, she'd probably just stay with us for the entirety of her life. And so that's what she did. It took about all of 2021 to get her to turn the corner because, like Barbaro, I'm pretty sure it was, the racehorse, when they have a leg injury, there's a reason we always just put them down if they broke a leg, right? It's because if they have a leg injury that is so hard on the other leg, and I mean a big injury, a break, this bad knee would constitute a big injury because of how bad it was. They put too much weight on the other foot and it can founder the foot. And so that's what Eva was dealing with. And so we had to try to fix the foot while also dealing with the fact that if she put weight on the knee, it made the knee worse. So if she then tried to compensate and put more weight on the bad foot, it made the bad foot worse. And so she was very complicated, but she was tough as nails. She was an absolute fighter. And so I had a wonderful acupuncturist vet who had come out to look at her prior to her recovery. And we had done x-rays of the feet and we had done x-rays of the knee. And she had said, man, this knee is so bad. If you are able to somehow get her better, at some point it's going to flare up again. And so we knew that. Eva, every day she came ready to try. And so we said, all right. And sure enough, it was late 2021. She just turned the corner and she got to go out with the other mares and she became boss woman. At some point down the road, we'll do a podcast episode on her because she deserves it. So I'm just going to give you the cliff notes right now. But she became boss woman and absolutely stole everybody's hearts. Ours, our farm caretakers, she became a farm favorite. And she was different. She was unique. She was never going to be riding sound because of the knee, but she didn't let that hold her back. I mean, she was just had to be first out to, when you turned them out, she had to be first. One of our first videos to ever go mini viral on Facebook several years ago was Eva running up the hill. And I'm not sure why it did so well, but I can't remember the views it got now, but it did really well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we made it to 2,000 followers on Facebook years ago. And then we just stayed there because nothing else ever did well and I wasn't posting regularly. But yeah, Eva was the first one to go viral. Like the vet said, that knee eventually flared up and really started causing her a lot of trouble. And throughout that process of seeing if maybe we could turn the knee around again, we found for the first time ever, we've never really been happy with arthritis products. And that's what's in the knee, is a ton of arthritis and deformity. And through Eva and another client, Nicole, who's got a very special ring bone, side bone horse, very toed in, pretty significant deformity with remodeling inside the foot. He's older. Through Eva and then Nicole helping, we got hooked up with Joanne at My Best Horse. And oh my gosh, what an incredible woman. And found Move Ease and PEA, 2 supplements, and started Eva and Nicole's horse on that. And for Eva, did it make a huge difference? I'm not totally sure. But for Nicole's horse, it made a world of difference. Now, he's not quite as bad as she was. And so it was like, wow, this stuff really works. Interesting. And so we've played around on hock arthritis, the older horses who need a little extra care. And we have been really impressed for the first time because throughout however many decades trying different stuff, we've just never found something that it's like, this definitely works. Somehow, maybe. And so we've really struggled recommending arthritis stuff. But between Eva and Nicole with Apollo, we have arthritis stuff now. It's so cool. So we're really thankful to Eva for that. But that wasn't enough for her with how her knee is. And so we did a lot of stuff. And that's where she'll have her own podcast episode eventually. And we can talk about all the therapies we did. But we told Eva, she's so tough. We told Eva, girlfriend, you have to let us know, because we've seen you come back from something incredible. And so if you want to come back, we're going to keep fighting for you as long as you keep coming in every day telling us that you want to keep going. But the day you decide, maybe I'm done, we're going to respect it. And so yesterday she said, I'm tired, I'm done. And we said,
not a problem.
Not a problem. And so she has crossed the Rainbow Bridge, and it is devastating. Not because we didn't know, not because she was older. I mean, she's had a great life. And the bonus years she got running with the herd, incredible. And so it's not devastating because you're shocked or because you don't know. It's just devastating because they're family. And Eva wasn't technically our horse, but it doesn't matter. These rehab horses, whether they stay for a year and go back home to their owners, or like Eva or Buzzy, they stay to retire, they become like family. Client horses become like family. You really get attached to them. And so
they do.
It's like losing a member of the family.
It is.
So we're heartbroken, but we have a podcast to do today, and we are here. But if anybody looks a little weird, that would be why we are mourning a loss of a beloved family member. We shouldn't be sad for her.
No.
You don't know her, so this isn't going to be as powerful to you. But when we do our podcast episode on her, it'll help clear this up. But I have to tell you, once we got it all settled, I was still on the tractor. We start getting this lightning storm. And this was the most intense lightning storm I think I've experienced.
Yeah.
I've had close lightning. I've been kind of struck by lightning through my electric fence. That's a fun story. Not going to tell it right now. I'm lucky I'm not dead.
Yeah.
So, seen some lightning. Come from Florida, seen some lightning. This lightning and the streaks of it that you could see like where it was hitting on the farm. It was incredible.
Very scary.
Very scary. And just made it into, the car quick enough. Us and the farm caretaker was there as, we were finalizing stuff. And she had texted later and she's like, that lightning storm is Eva running around up in heaven. And I'm like, yes, but you actually know that lightning storm is Eva up in heaven letting God know how things are going to go now.
That's right.
And you'd have to know her to really appreciate it. But, I can only imagine.
What a spunky girl.
She comes in and she says, I'm here now. And these are the new ground rules. So that was very, very cute. And when we do her podcast episode, it'll all make sense.
It'll all make
but
sense.
Man, she was a character.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We wanted to talk about that very quickly, but enough about that. We are going to talk about how we got our name, what it means, really, why we named ourselves Primarily Hooves, but how it came to that. And so let's just dive into it.
Okay, so I think we were talking about back in Florida when I was running the show by myself. My liposunder Dix, who's now 31, was having metabolic issues. At the time, Cushing's, pituitary tumor, like what else could be involved with that? I think at that point is when Dr. Kellon came into the picture, because nutritional support was so important for these horses and mineral balancing, that aspect of nutrition. Worming is very important. And so there was starting to be a link between other things outside of hooves, because she would also recommend certain trims for these Cushing's horses. Because what happens in a Cushing's horse, if it's not managed, they don't normally die of the pituitary tumor bursting or having issue, but from the side effects of the Cushing's, which one of the biggest ones is laminitis and founder. Making sure that proper hoof health was very important. Started putting those two things together.
Well, I think something worth kind of just bringing up, because it did recently just come up. Back in the 90s, thinking about stuff outside the hoof was kind of not super common, because thinking about the hoof was very new at that point.
Right.
If you don't already, you need to go follow the Horse's Hoof on Facebook. Mm-hmm. They have run I believe a magazine, and I know a newsletter since the inception of Barefoot, which was in, I'm going to get my dates wrong. Hi, Piper. The late 80s, early 90s. What you need to go do is go on the Facebook and look, because what they've done is recently posted an incredible timeline of when Barefoot started. Yes. And seriously, it was not that long ago. Yeah. Talking about being in the 90s was literally the birth of anybody thinking you could do anything with a horse without shoes. And they weren't even talking riding yet.
Right.
Right? It wasn't about
this
that.
This was just right.
I think they documented, and they've been documenting the whole time. They've been there the whole time, which is what's so cool about the Horse's Hoof. But I think it was 99 is when they documented that there was chatter, and at conferences, people started talking about maybe you could ride the horse if it doesn't have shoes on. Also, this isn't just for saving a life. And so thinking about anything else in conjunction with the hoof, that was very fringe. That was very
very
new,
fringe.
Because this whole thing was very new. And I think it's easy for us to forget about that, especially if you're new to the barefoot world or new to the horse world. If you've just recently gotten to horses in the last even 15 years, that's kind of recent. You don't realize that this hasn't just been a thing we've been studying and doing forever, right? It's still very new.
It's very new.
I've been alive almost longer than people have accepted that you can ride horses without shoes. Right. I was born right after Strausser and Jamie Jackson first started talking about it.
Right. And that's when I got into it. It was after Nicole was born, right after. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to remove my horse's shoes and not just do a pasture trim for a horse who's just going to be turned out to pasture and not do anything. Yeah, that was very important times. And, thankfully they had some things going so that I was interested in it because...
But they had it going for like maybe a decade.
Well, right. Yeah. And it wasn't even with the riding yet.
Right.
Because the riding didn't start till, like you said, 99.
Right.
So just, very, very interesting. The other one that we talked about was Suntan, who was a client in Florida. And I remember trimming some horses at the barn he was stabled at. And he was in a round pen with all four legs wrapped up in pillow wraps. And it was in a very small round pen. It was a tiny thing. Just had his head over the side and looking at me as I trudged in with my tools. And I distinctly remember him the first time. And I just kind of looked at him and I looked at his legs and I could glance at his feet and I thought, oh, the poor thing, he's recovering from something. And the next time I would go, 4 or 5 weeks later, he'd be there in the pen with the legs wrapped. And I think the second time is when I just stopped for a moment. There was just something, he was just like calling to me. And I think I pet him on the head. And when I looked down, I could see his toes were at least 6 or 7 inches long. And he had shoes on the bottom of those toes.
And he was a little guy.
And he's just a little thing. Oh, he's just adorable. He's just adorable. And I mean, I looked him in the eyes and said, honey, I can't do anything for you until your mommy talks to me. You know? And I patted him and I left. And sure enough, next trim, mommy talked to me. And so I worked with him for, I think, 2, maybe 3 years. We got him rideable in less than 6 months.
What was wrong with him?
Oh, he had, and that was a long time ago, but he was pulling tendons and suspensories in all 4 legs. I mean, he had issue.
So why did trimming him help?
And so trimming helped because getting the back of the foot more robust, shortening the toe to take off the leveraging force so that the tendons weren't under more stress, because Suntan was a dressage horse. And I think at the time he might have been dabbling 2nd, 3rd level. And so he was doing some pretty intense work. Her vet was on the case and they were trying different shoeing applications, but nobody really looked at the fact that his toes were so long, he was like wearing flippers,
Well, and Dr. Bowker says, and I'm not going to get my numbers right now because that's not what I'm good at remembering unless it's in front of me, but Dr. Bowker says the highest degree of stress on the navicular, but also on the deep digital flexor tendon is at breakover. And the farther breakover goes out, the greater amplitude of stress is on those apparatus.
Yes. It wasn't long before, the swelling went down, the vet would come and check, and he got the clearance to ride. And so it was 4 or 5 months that we worked on his hooves, and she started riding, and she had some allergies and asthma issues, so she would occasionally ask me to ride him. And I loved it because that horse was the best. He loved to ride to music. He did, musical freestyles. And so New York, New York was one of his favorite songs. And, he was just amazing.
His canter.
Rocking horse canter. Just lovely, just balanced and absolutely magnificent. When we decided that we were moving to Tennessee and, we were leaving Florida, I told his owner, because I had such a relationship with him. He was a horse that you needed to keep on cross ties because he would weigh around and bite you while you were grooming or while you were saddling, even while you were trimming. Now, the first couple times I trimmed, it was like, you make sure you watch his little head but after that, when he started feeling better, and I would tell him, I'm just here to help you. We're going to get this right. I promise that this is going to really go well for you. He started relaxing with me, and I could just leave a rope on the ground and trim him or saddle him and ride him. And so when it was time to leave, and everybody at the barn,
they didn't like him.
They didn't like
him. He's mean.
Because they thought he was mean, which he wasn't. He was trying to tell us something. When we were leaving, I said to her, if anytime you want to, retire Suntan, or if something happens, you let me know, and I would be more than happy to bring him to the farm here in Tennessee. It was about a year to the date after we left that he started pulling suspensories, or I can't remember what he was pulling again. And the owner just thought, the workload was too hard. Well, of course he comes and he's in shoes and his toes are again, out in the next county. So we rehabbed him and it did not take that long.
No.
And we got to remember, in Florida, the ground is very flat. Their bodies only get a certain amount of, exercise, even just being turned out. Yeah, they can run around. But living here in Tennessee, and these hills and the way that their bodies have to compensate for grazing on the sides of hills, it just does something for them. And so
it's always fun taking a flatlander.
And putting them on a hill.
We've had a lot of rehab horses from either the East Coast where it's real flat, or it's always funny.
It's always fun. It's for them to go, huh? I gotta make it up there to get to food, or It is, or getting down there.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, the
Oh, yeah.
downhill is quite fun. He rehabbed phenomenally. And, I mean, we just enjoyed.
He's 21 when we got him.
He was 21. So we took him. He did some rodeos. He
Drill team?
Drill team. We trail rode him everywhere. You know, he was a dressage horse in the ring, but he did a little bit of trail riding, I think, in Florida. But I mean, we took him everywhere. Everywhere. He was such a great horse.
8th grade, I think my elementary school was a couple miles down the road, but they're quiet roads. And so we would ride him, and I can't remember Zippy. I think you took Zippy.
I think I took Zippy, yeah.
Yep. We'd ride out on Fridays to the football game, not because we cared to watch football, but it was a thing to do. And then it always amassed, people who were interested in seeing the horses. That was so fun. There's apple trees on the way. They could stop and get some apples. Oh, he was awesome. I might, if I can remember to put a picture in, because I do have one of 8th grade me on suntan in front of the football field.
Yeah, no, he was great. But so that told us that the hoof balance has an enormous amount to do with the health of the horse, right? The vets weren't saying that. They weren't talking about hoof form. They might have put him up on a wedge to get the angle right, but they weren't really concerned with the inside. And so that was another little piece of a puzzle of our name, what it started to turn into.
And something like suntan, he also had DSLD.
That's
that you
right.
had to manage.
That's right. And that was another Dr. Kellon discovery. She had a research group. Was it on Facebook or Yahoo Groups? It might have been Yahoo Groups.
It's not Facebook.
It wasn't Facebook. But she took owners with horses with this DSLD and her protocol with the J-herb and the AKG to see, not that you can reverse it, but how comfortable could you keep the horses? And suntan, so we got him at 21, and we started seeing the hind end issues along with the front end issues. But we started him on that protocol, and suntan was 36, and we didn't put him down for the DSLD. He just had no teeth left in his head and was eating.
He probably had cancer.
Yeah.
Because they were feeding him plenty, but he was just muscle wasted.
Yeah.
They couldn't keep weight. Before he had started to drop off, he had gone to a client who had a young son who was wanting to learn how to ride. And suntan was getting a little old for the things we were doing here, and so he just wasn't getting ridden as often, but he could still do. We let her borrow him for the son, and they had the best time together. Dress him up, and it was hilarious.
Yeah.
They had the best time, and so when he started to fail and drop off, we had offered to take him back.
That's right.
She was feeding him.
So much food.
He was probably a 800-pound horse. He was a small horse anyway, but she's feeding him 18 pounds of food a day, carting it out with a dolly, and nothing's putting weight on him.
No.
And so, from what the vet and everybody could kind of determine is he probably had some kind of cancer that was eating the food instead of him. And that's what eventually he just got too weak. And so it was time to put him down. But man, I had offered to take him back. And she's German. So there's the accent, which made it so much cuter. I mean, as soon as I offered, he's costing you a lot of money in food. I'm happy to take him back. You don't need to, the tears welled up. She grabs him around the neck. No, I love him. He's family. He can die here. Okay. That's fine.
Well, because do you remember when we dropped him off and within the first week, she goes, he's the only horse on my farm that comes when I call. Yeah. And so he was training the other ones, really. I mean, it was just so funny.
So funny.
It was so funny that, the rest of them, she had to kind of beg to come up, but suntan and shoom. So she loved that.
But sound until the day he died.
Oh,
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So cool,
So yeah. So that's just another one who, puts other ideas in your head about why hoof balance and why hoof structure are so important in what we're doing.
Well, because those DSLD horses, they want to, because of how those hind legs are, they really want to get very NPA.
Sure.
And then that just pulls everything even more, pulls the pastern down. And so that's something you do have to stay on top of a little bit more than another horse.
Right.
especially if they're already a little advanced, because they're going to wear that way.
That's right.
And so you can either let that happen and let it get worse, or you can use supplementation that's been proven to work. Plus,
Right.
you stay on top of hoof balance when they
Right.
can't, and that
Right.
makes a big difference.
Oh, absolutely.
It was always about standing suntan back up because he just couldn't do it himself.
Right. Right. So we had another one, dear friend of mine got her Grand Prix horse. His name is Danny. And I remember the day that Lisa had called and said Danny would not let the farrier put the shoes on his back feet again. And the farrier got a little mean with Danny. And so Lisa kicked him off the property because she was just that kind of girl, which is, hey, you're not gonna treat my horse like that. Danny was having stifle issues. Danny's stifles were locking, and it was hard for him. And so all Danny was trying to do was to say, hey, notice something, help me here. And
well, when those stifles lock, I mean, they can't.
They just can't do it. She had asked me if, I could come over and at least help her trim the back feet. And I said, well, absolutely. It was a matter of a couple trims. It did not take long at all before Danny didn't lock in the stifle anymore. And that was because of hoof balance. So that was huge to see these things that, Mad Dog was another one of them. Do you remember the dip? The dip in his wither.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he had the biggest wither I'd ever seen.
He had this enormous shark wither. He was a rehab that came to the house. And once we got the front feet correct, and he didn't have to walk around in this tense way.
Thoroughbred,
he
right?
just blossomed in front. And so you start cataloging these things, even though you're not writing them down because you're just trying to, have a family, small children, you've got a farm of your own, you're out there trying to, take on cases that, you have never seen a good hoof yet. But you start saying, wow, certain things are happening here, and they're making a difference beyond the hooves.
Right.
Beyond what we're wanting healthy hooves.
Right.
So just such an interesting thing taking place.
And it was things that, like you mentioned in suntan, it wasn't being talked about. I'm sure somebody out there somewhere, multiple somebodies were talking about it, but collectively it wasn't being talked about.
Right. And there
angles matter, and yet that was the end.
Right.
Just angles.
Oh, you always got a hoof angle thingy. And, that should be 45 degrees. That should be 52 degrees. That's the what.
The hoof angle thingy. You can see how much we care about that.
Yeah. Well, because that's not what it's about. It's not about an angle. It's not about, it's about.
Build the foot and the angles will come.
That's right. Right. Absolutely. Just, just the whirlwind in the old head. And then moving to Tennessee, what a shock. Because of the grass here, at least in Florida, you had a relatively low sugar grass. The Bahia and Bermuda are warm season grasses. They tend to be a little less sugary, although once the rain hits in Florida, you do have to be careful, but it's normally like in the summertime, whereas in Tennessee, it's spring and fall. It's both times of year, and it can last for many months in the spring and, a month or two in the fall.
It can carry through the summer if you're wet enough.
It can carry through the summer if you're wet and you're not just super, super hot and baking dry.
Right.
Because that's what our moody grass, they call it here, Bermuda grass does. It starts to come up in the heat of the summer. So management, having to learn, because in the first year, we just turned them all out. I mean, we were struggling ourselves. And so the horses just got turned out, and there was plenty of woods, and, they could be in the woods for shade, and everything was fine pretty much for the first year. Actually, we had to feed them the first year.
They lost weight when they moved.
Because their microbiome was not used to this grass, so they just were not taking the nutrition in. And so I could not believe that I had, tripled the acreage, even quadrupled the acreage that we had in Florida. And I was feeding so much more, concentrate than I ever had. And I thought, wow, this is really stinky. And then year 2 comes. And they got fat and crusty and sore. And it was like, we have got to do something here, and so, looking into what the grass is and, hearing from the vet that it has an endophyte in it. So if you have a pregnant mare, you're going to want to take that mare off. I always remembered that, but I didn't have any pregnant mares. So doing a little bit more research on this grass. Well, yes, it's a cattle grass. Its job is to fatten cattle. So you start going, okay, well, maybe they don't need 24/7 access on this because it's not doing them any good.
Right.
It wasn't until after the tornado when we really started with the dry lot situations and the in during the day and out at night and seeing how that made huge, wonderful changes on our horses' hooves so that we could push some boundaries. Because, you're always staying on the side of keeping them sound. And whether that meant leaving a hoof wall longer, which is peripheral loading, which is what shoes do and leaving walls do. So you're not, I want to say, taxing the structures for them to be able to grow. I mean, that's ideally what you want. And we shouldn't do that and have a crippled horse.
Right.
We've got to do that in an appropriate way so that, A, the diet is changed first so that we know we don't have any inflammation, that when we start to make changes, we can make them confidently and not have a repercussion of a laminitis type situation going on where we're starving the hoof of blood, which is going to heal it. So you want to make sure you have as much blood flow as possible. But yeah, so it wasn't until 2011 where we could start playing with these things because we knew we had a more dialed in, or at least we had less damage coming from the fescue.
Well,
say it that way.
Something people don't think enough about is the hoof is a very small thing doing a very big job, right?
Yes.
And so it is very resource heavy, resource being blood, right? And just a healthy hoof just doing its thing, just maintaining, needs a fair amount of blood to perfuse through all the tissues to stay strong, to do its job well. But what you're dealing with usually is a hoof that is not healthy. It is underdeveloped, right?
Underdeveloped.
And
not
so,
enough blood running through.
Right. The tissues are deteriorated. And so what you want to do is you want to stimulate those tissues in a way that's going to develop them and make them get bigger and stronger. And so now their need while they're recovering is even greater.
Right.
It's kind of like if you're in intensive care and you're healing from something, your caloric need may go up over when you're just normal, right? Because your body is working really hard
to heal itself.
And so the foot's the same way. Now you add into that an inadequate diet, inflammatory feeds, inflammatory grass, whatever that's then caused further restriction. You trim that foot to stimulate it. Now those tissues are like pumped up to 12 saying we need fuel, and the body says I can't do it. Sorry, you're going to starve. Right? It doesn't work. You can't do it that way. You have to be able to provide the fuel or the blood to that foot when it ramps up in production.
Right.
And so you have to prepare early. You have to get that diet ready and that body ready so when you do start making tweaks in the trim, the body's there to just give the foot, what do you need, foot? You have at it.
Right. And then you take it slow. Then you don't just slam your horse's foot down on weak structures. It is a very tedious process. I mean, I think we've mentioned how Dr. Bowker would critique our photos when we had done a trim and say, I think it needs 1/8 of an inch here. And literally that's what that means. That doesn't mean take 1.5 inches. That means take 1/8 of an inch. And it's a very, very slow and very precise process because the structure is what tells you what you can remove, what you can't remove. And that's almost even more important. How many times? Well, you hardly took anything off. How could? And you say, yeah, because I know what not to take off.
And that might be different in the next trim as that foot changes.
That's right.
You have to be able to look at the structure, know what it's saying about what's going on inside. That's the most important part.
The most important part of this whole thing.
I derailed us a little bit there with that. That's not where we meant to be going, but that's good anyway. That's good stuff. That's really the most important stuff.
And I was going to say, and before leaving Florida, we met a horseman. Well, I met you. You were too young. That absolutely revolutionized what I thought about the dressage training that I had been exposed to. And so, what is dressage? It is the systematic approach to gymnatizing the horse so that they carry themselves the best, they have longevity, that they are a joy to ride and to watch, right? That's what it's supposed to be. So it's a bodybuilding program for longevity to make the horse more beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Competition dressage is a little bit different than classical dressage. And so what I was exposed to was competition dressage because I'm an A-type personality and I'm going to compete in everything I do. So, which is good in some ways, but then not good in others. But once, made the transition to the hooves, I started seeing some of these things that maybe there was a better way because, my Grand Prix horse was getting the acupuncture, chiropractic, homeopathic to keep him going, right? And so, once removing his shoes and thinking a little bit more about the diet and meeting Harry Whitney and understanding a little bit more about how to properly get a horse on board with the training, not just training the horse, making the horse do, but getting this willing partner to participate in the training and the joy and the freedom that brought to the riding and the training absolutely revolutionized everything. And so I think I mentioned my friend who was the vet that was taking care of Fogel. She would come periodically, take pity on me. And so, yes, the hooves made a huge difference. But the training, once I started riding him again, also made a huge difference. Why he didn't need all of the acupuncture and she would just say, he's great. He looks fantastic. And so another big part of that was how he was being ridden. And so then, of course, Dix got the benefit of that. But, I had pissed my Lipizzaner off to the point of him being extremely dangerous and, wanting to get rid of him because it just was so awful. But having, again, him participate in the training and not just pulling his head down to have control, but allowing him the freedom and being on the same page mentally with him. Because, as we see now, what is the biggest cause of war? It's two opinions that differ. And then
nobody's willing to let go.
Nobody's willing to let go of their thought. And so getting our horses to let go of their friends, to let go of eating the grass, to let go of the things that they think are so important at the moment, to get with us and participate in what we're doing makes a tremendous amount of difference, because we're not then fighting to get this done. We are happy. He's happy to come with me. He's happy to move his body in certain ways so that I don't have to make him. He's just on board. So
it's an oversimplification, but I think about the horse being a train, and it's one of those freight trains where you've got the engine in the front pulling and you got the engine in the back pushing. And so the engine, because we talk about a horse's engine being in the hind end.
Sure.
But really they've got two engines. They've got the engine on the hind end, but then they've got the engine in the brain that leads the whole thing. And realistically, it's telling that hind end engine what to do.
Where to go. That's right.
But so often we're trying to drive that hind end engine while the front brain engine has its brakes on. And now in the case of a horse, realistically, it might be trying to go over here, go over there. Maybe it does have its brakes on. It might be doing different things. The horse isn't on a track. But if we think about the train, it's got all air brakes on, engine brake on, full lockdown. And yet that
still
back
pushing.
engine is just trying to push, And so what happens to the cars in the middle?
Right. They get squinched.
They get squinched. They fall off the track. All this, we get crookedness. We get brace. We
Right.
get, all this uneven locomotion. We get all this other stuff in the body. And we go, well, it's a body issue. We need to hold that shoulder. And we need.
Right.
So then we're just trying to contain those train cars that are popping all over the place.
That's right.
Whereas if we could get that front engine to let up off the brake and just lead the train,
That's right.
well, then everything else will fall into place.
It was so much easier riding. You need all the skill because you got to hold the shoulder. You've got to do this. You've got all this stuff. And when you get the horse, as simple as to think around the corner to make a circle, right? Because they fall out, they fall in, they do. If you get the horse to think around the corner, you let him go around the corner, and he does it himself. And so really, all you have to get out of his way.
Yeah.
And that can be hard in itself, but so much easier on the body so that you can feel more things, so that you can enjoy, so that you're more aware instead of holding and pushing and making things happen. Just a beautiful awareness. So now what I had seen with Harry Whitney is horses coming in with their owners and the owners riding and the horses actually being off, right? Now, whether that was because of where they were thinking, if they're thinking to their friends so hard that there's a crookedness, that is going to make a horse look off, right? Because of the crookedness. And so you would get Harry to get that horse on the same page with him, and he would ride them sound. And you're just sitting there going, this is something you're taking the notes in your head again, because if I sit and take notes, I can't pay attention to what goes on next.
Yeah, we're not good.
So it's the head notes. This is something that I need to be exploring because I have never, ever seen somebody do that. And it was miraculous. And so that was something that I knew needed to be invested in. And Danielle is so lucky because she never knew anything different. When she started her horsemanship journey, she was allowed to go and watch at first, so audit, and then participate. And still to this day is a participant in.
Yes, I've certainly been blessed.
And she has been blessed because, first she has a hard time riding horses that are shod at bad angles. She just can't do it.
Makes you feel bad,
Makes you feel bad. And then riding horses who have not had training in which they are participating.
Because who are you riding for? Are you riding for you or are you riding for the partnership? And so you can get on something and ride it, but that's not fun if they're not also benefiting from the experience. I think about the same thing with the feet. If each step I take on that horse's back is not benefiting the foot, which is benefiting the body, what's the point of being on?
What's the point?
If every step's a detriment.
That's right.
Physically, emotionally, whatever.
That's right.
No, thank you.
And so then learning the postures and the movement that go with good emotions on a horse, and learning the posture and movement that go with a horse that doesn't have those good thoughts and emotions is so important to learn, because the horse that's dragging its feet and barely striding, that horse can have the most perfect trim. But if they're not using that foot to the best of their ability because they feel so bad, you're going to ruin the feet.
Yep.
How many times have we told owners, you're ruining my feet?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So that is another thing to consider in where our name comes from, because it's not just about the feet.
Right. I remember, and I've talked about it a couple times with Harry, but I remember the horse left to his own devices was sound. And then he comes into the round pen dealing with the owner and he goes lame. And then through getting him to feel better mentally, he goes sound. And so he's a sound horse, right? But his crookedness, his resistance, his tension creates that unevenness. And he's young. And it's like, if that's ignored, eventually he is going to wear something out, right? Because he's loading unevenly. He's going to wear his hock out. He's slamming too hard on his left front. He's going to start to remodel. I mean, there's going to be things that are going to happen that are actually going to turn into a real lameness.
It's going to be a real lameness. And we've seen that
because
happen.
of, what's starting as a mental, emotional, physical through tension.
Absolutely.
Imbalance.
And the sad part is most owners aren't even aware of the crookedness. The horse is, let's say, on the lunge line or in the round pen, and on one side, well, everything looks good. The horse has a slight bend to the inner side of the circle, but then they go the other way and the horse is clearly looking out.
Counterbent.
And so you say, so you realize what's going on, and well, no, they're going fine. They're falling in. Yeah, they're falling in, but they're also bent in their body. That's why they're falling in. And so to be able to help that before a lameness occurs, instead of ignoring it and just watching things fall apart and then say, oh, my horse is limping now. Well, because what's that about?
That goes back to like we were talking about the riding. Every step he takes counterbent on that circle. We'll just simplify it down to heavy on his, I'm thinking about a counterclockwise circle, so heavy on his left fore. Every step he takes, heavy on that left fore, is a detriment to that left fore.
That's right.
And I'm not talking about anything else. We're just thinking about that one spot.
That's right.
What's the point of doing that circle?
Right, exactly.
Who are you doing it for?
What's the point of doing the circle?
But people don't know. They're not trying to cause trouble. They just don't know.
That's right. That's right. So it's what a phenomenal learning experience.
So I'm thinking, because we're already at 50 minutes, and so what I'm thinking is we're going to have to do 2 parts.
Okay. We could end this because of Harry talking about Deb Bennett.
Okay.
And his
that's a good one.
Encouragement about going to see Dr. Deb. She is what would you call Dr. Deb? She's a biomechanic specialist. Is that what you call that?
I'll have to look it up what her official title is, so then next episode we can give it, because we need to give her official title. I don't know. She's a genius.
She's a genius. Absolutely. And Harry did some work with her. And that's where her birdie theory came from, if anybody is familiar with Dr. Deb, because Harry kept talking about the straightness coming from the brain, right? And so where does the little birdie live in Dr. Deb's analogy is in the brain. And so she loved Harry, and she can be quite, what's the word? Intense, because she is so passionate about what she does.
Yes.
She wants people to get it. And I think is a little frustrated at times when they don't. She's a master at what she does. And so if anybody's out there and you see Dr. Deb, any of her books or Facebook page or, website, anything she's got out there, go look at Dr. Deb, because she talks biomechanics. I've done a clinic with her when we were in Florida, and it was absolutely amazing, the things that woman can see and spot. And yeah, she was crazy good.
Yes. It's a lot. It
is a lot to digest. And so that's a course in itself.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I would probably consider that kind of like phase 1, being exposed to a lot of stuff, but not really necessarily understanding the connection of how it all works together at that point.
Totally putting it together.
Right.
But there's a little here and a little there, and you're just pondering these things at the moment.
Right.
Maybe trying a little this or a little that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then phase 2 would be here more in the last 10, 15 years with who we've gotten to meet and what that's helped bring together. Not that, again, nothing's ever complete. The learning keeps going.
No.
It is they are so intricately designed.
That's right.
We'll never know it all. And so don't misconstrue any of that.
No.
But I think it's been the last 10, 15 years that there's been a lot more aha moments getting to figure out how the whole system works together.
Oh, sure.
But we'll save that for part 2, because we don't need this to be 2 hours long. That could easily happen. All right. I want to thank everybody again for being here and enjoying part 1 of why we are named Primarily Hooves. And part 2 will wrap up with why we're named Primarily Hooves. Though I would imagine at this point you're already probably starting to figure it out.
Figuring it out a little.
And maybe you already knew before. But yeah, so we'll do that in the next episode. Thank you so much to each and every one of our Patreon members. We are so glad you're here. Don't hesitate to leave us any comments over on the Patreon for anything you guys need or any topic suggestions.
Topic suggestions, please. We have a list of our own, but we want to make sure that we take care of you.
One of the more recent ones we got, which I think is awesome, and so we've added this to the list, is our view on hoof care in young horses.
Yeah.
So, from like the time they're born forward, what should hoof care look like for young horses before they're being ridden or doing things? And that's a good one.
That's a great one.
The formative time is like one of the most important times. So that's definitely on the list. I think that'll be awesome to talk about. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for your continued support.
Thank you.
Go check out our Facebook page at Primarily Hooves. And just thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.